As we continue this morning's discussion on building a pipeline of Latina leaders, we will be hearing from trailblazers in business, education, and government. We are looking forward to hearing more about their journeys and how Latina leaders can serve as mentors to those just starting their careers. I am pleased to welcome on stage Alejandra Castillo, former director of the Minority Business Development Agency. She was the first Hispanic American woman to lead the agency since its creation. A practicing attorney for several years, Alejandra has worked in government, nonprofit, and the private sector. Next is Nina Vaca, chairman and CEO of the Pinnacle Group. Apart from running her very successful company, Nina is also a passionate advocate for women and entrepreneurs, especially within the Hispanic and minority communities. In 2014, the Obama administration appointed Nina a presidential ambassador for global entrepreneurship. And we have Jennifer Korn, special assistant to the president and White House deputy director for the Office of Public Liaison. Prior to the White House, Jennifer was Deputy Political Director and National Director for Hispanic Initiatives at the RNC. And finally, Sarita Brown, President of Excelencia in Education. Her not-for-profit organization seeks to accelerate Latino success in higher education. And Erica Gonzalez, reporter and anchor with Washington, D.C.'s local NBC TV affiliate, NBC4, will be leading this conversation. Erica, over to you.
Thank you. Good morning. Buenos días. ¿Cómo estamos?
Yes.
This is an exciting day, an exciting panel, lots of questions, and so we want to try to get to everybody a couple of times, okay? And of course, we're going to have your questions a little closer to the end, so start thinking of what it is that you really wish that you had the opportunity and that you hope you don't wait any longer to ask somebody and really hear heart to heart what it takes to get through those doors and to really get where you want to be. So we're going to start first a little bit more broad, and then we'll zero in. So I want to hear, and anybody can either raise their hand or chime in, say, I got this, whatever you'd like. Let's talk specifically about the unique strengths that Latinas bring to the table. Not necessarily what sets us apart, but what are our strengths? What is it that we bring to the table that makes us uniquely different? Anybody can chime in.
I think it's the combination of both culture, language, and the fact that we're women. I'm a daddy's girl, so all the men in the room, thank you for raising great women. But in terms of the premise that women really are able to be very practical, yet very visionary, and have really fierce loyalties, I think that's something that women have. Latinas in particular are able to tap into that.
I would say that there's a little saying that you say, if you tell a man something, you've told one person something. If you tell a woman something, you've told 5 people. If you tell a Latina, you've told 25 people. And so we have that ability to bring people together, to really
Everybody laughs because you know it's true.
It's very true. In my family, to bring people together, and that has helped me definitely in my career in making sure that we're really reaching out and bringing as many people together.
So Sarita mentioned language being an asset, being a strength that Latinas have. Can we talk a little bit about the strength in having multiple languages and dominating multiple languages? And if you don't have the ability to dominate a second or a third language, doesn't necessarily mean that that's a weakness as a Latina.
No, it's never a weakness. First of all, I'm a big proponent that learning new languages is critical. Whether you love French or Italian, your brain thinks very differently. Right. You know, I think of language as music. You know, you may like classical music, you may like jazz, but there's a way to figure out the world. And if you don't know a language, then learn something new, a code, right? Coding is a language. Math is a language. It's ways for us to expand the way we communicate and that we see the world and analyze it. So I was going to piggyback on the first question. We are extraordinarily resourceful. We can figure it out. You give us a problem, and within minutes, and I see a lot of heads nodding, we can figure it out. So languages are very important, and it's never too late. It's never too late to learn a language.
Let me kind of change topics here and talk about, and we've talked about some of our strengths, but what are some of the greatest obstacles that are standing in our way, that leave us knocking at the door and continuing to knock at the door?
Some of the biggest obstacles, quite frankly, not just for Latinas, but for all women, is that you can't be what you can't see. And so if you don't see other women prospering, if they are not out there mentoring or lending themselves to panels or lending them their leadership or their experiences to bear, women can't see that. In the Latino community, it's even more exasperated because there's so few in corporate America that have risen to the occasion of the C-suite. I was marveled that Geisha was here. I thought it was amazing that she would spend her time mentoring people. But that's one of the biggest obstacles we face is you can't be what you can't see.
But I think it's also inspiring for those that are there, you ladies that are in these positions, to talk about them and to express that they're messy. The road there was messy. It's never clean cut, clear cut. It was never easy. And I think that oftentimes maybe we get to some stages and we wonder, was there a better way that I could have done this? Or does it really look like this? Is it this messy? So I think it's important that you said that. I want to try to ask you all some specific questions based on your backgrounds and your career. Nina, let me start with you and let me ask you, we spoke a little bit about this backstage and you just touched on it a little bit here, but the challenges that Latinas are facing in corporate America, and part of the reason why you chose to go a different direction.
Yeah, I actually did. I spent 2 years in corporate America. And oftentimes entrepreneurs, if they don't see a path, they create one for themselves. And I've been doing that for the last 20 years. I started my company out of my living room floor. And 20 years later, we're proud to be the fastest growing women-owned business in America.
Wow.
That deserves an applause. Okay, Alejandra, let me ask you about the unique strengths that Latina business owners have, not just on a local scale, let's talk globally.
Sure, and I think Nina alluded to this. When we find ourselves in difficult situation, again, we make it happen. Therefore, we start our businesses. But our challenge is not starting the business, it's helping them grow. And that's where we really need to hone in. And as our economy continues to change, where you're more innovative, innovation-driven and more technologically driven, we really need to look at the business community from the lens of technology. And how do we incorporate that? So I love the fact that Latina-owned women are the fastest growing in number. My concern is how do we help them grow in scale? Because that's where the job creation starts, right? And that's where the sisterhood for entrepreneurs, Nina does a fantastic job mentoring other Latina and women-owned businesses. We need to learn how to leapfrog that learning curve, because if we start small, it takes us forever. And I know that you've had an amazing journey, but how wonderful had it been if you had been able to shorten that from 20 years to 10 years, right? And that's where we really need to create this ecosystem to help our Latina-owned businesses
So let's
grow.
say, Alejandra, that you do have this dream, and maybe you're blessed with having a mentor, somebody like yourself. So you've got those boxes checked, and you want to start this business, and you want to take it on a grand scale. How do you connect to get the funding that you need to move this dream along?
Sure. So the access to capital is the #1 problem for businesses. And let me tell you, there's a lot of capital. So it's not that the availability of capital, it's how do we access it. And that's where Jenny, who is now at the White House, and people who have served in previous administration have been working really hard to make sure that the capital in this country is democratized. So it's not just the people who have always had capital, but those who are seeking it. So you have the SBA, but you also have other alternative capital sources. And technology is, the whole conversation of fintech is something that we need to monitor, because that's also going to change the way that banks and lending institutions are actually engaging Latino-owned businesses.
Sarita, let me turn to you and ask you about some of the barriers facing Latinas in attaining their higher education and moving through and attaining more.
There are barriers, but what is exciting today is that there's also a body of knowledge of how to overcome. And hearing these comments, which are pretty much in the business sector, you can take all of the strategies and apply it to what we might call intellectual entrepreneurship. Because the changes within institutions of higher education, within the educational system, fundamentally are the same. And that the idea of how do you get capital, so capital is allies, so whether it's in the K-12 system or whether it's in post-secondary, who are the professors, who are the student affairs professionals, how can they tell you what's best to do so that not only your course sequence, but also how to get financial aid, how to move forward. All of those things are better mapped today than they've ever been. And the opportunity to be able to use those lessons learned and to go forward is very high. I can't help, though, but seize the moment, because also you have great nonprofit organizations that you can turn to, and coincidentally, 2 of them are led by women who happen to be sitting in the front row. And so I would ask them to stand up, because in terms of what they do, in terms of scholarships for students, leadership and mentoring, they are examples. What I'm doing right now, this is what all of us can do. Órale, stand up.
Now that we've had you stand up, can you please tell us your names and the organizations that you represent, please?
I'm Dominica Lynch, and I'm presidency of the Congressional Hispanic Caucus Institute. And we, well, you know, my life's work has been working with young people. I've done it for the last 10 years. And the reason these ladies do what they do is because they know that they're trailblazers, and there's so many more of you following. And so I'm just inspired, and thank you so much.
Thank you. Marianne.
Buenos dias, Marianne Gomez Horta, President and CEO of the Congressional Hispanic Leadership Institute.
Thank you.
May I just say that I am a product of CHCI. Had it not been for CHCI, I would not be in Washington. And I won't disclose what year, but let's just say that it is, these 2 ladies are doing unbelievable things in this town. And that's the sisterhood that we have.
When we talk a little bit about educational barriers, can we also talk about, I think I was fortunate enough to have some good mentors when I was in college, and I knocked on some good doors and got some good answers at school. At home, can we talk about the barriers that we face? Can we be really honest here? Sure. La familia, mom, dad, the grandparents that are super nervous and scared about you going off to fulfill your dreams, to go away from your home, to leave the family, to abandon everybody, my word. They're an honest to goodness in our community. They're very real struggles, and they're difficult conversations to have. How did you all address those conversations, and what would be your advice to those sitting here with us today in having to say, I love you, but I'm gonna go?
Are you sure those are your words? Those are my mom's. No, I think it's a very real thing, and 20 years ago, it was even more of a barrier.
Right.
I think we're getting through, as our generations come through, we're getting a little bit away from that. But I remember I got a scholarship to Pepperdine University, and you could sign up to go to Washington, D.C. to be an intern. So I signed up, and I got accepted. It was so exciting, and then my mom was gonna let me go, and she was very nervous about it. But my grandmother, my abuelita, who was like, I can't believe that you're gonna let her go all the way across the country. I mean, she made it sound like I was going to Saudi Arabia. You know, it was just like the worst thing, and it was a barrier to me. And so one of the things I've been doing is I bring as many Latina groups together to talk to them about how to talk to their family, and that it's okay to let go and still be close to my family. I mean, my family is all still in Los Angeles, and my mom, I feel guilty every day that I'm not there. But it's one of those things, if you know what you really want to do, you need your family support, and you need to explain to your family, this is what I need to do, and it's to help elevate Latinas as a whole. I mean, I'm so proud that, you know, I didn't have a mentor growing up. I mean, my dad was my mentor, but he hadn't gone to college, my mom hadn't gone to college, and so, you know, I just knew I was going to college. I didn't know what it was, but I was going when I was 5 years old, so, and then that opened up so many other doors to eventually work in the White House for the second time now, and, you know, it's but the biggest thing to me is then, because I didn't have the mentor outside in the workforce, is for me to be a mentor to other Latinas. And I'm so proud that one of our Latinas is here, Hannah Castillo, who's in the back, who's only 26 years old and already our office manager and doing amazing things. And we, just being able to bring more Latinas in and mentor them as they go through their experience and help them.
In your experiences, I'm sorry, go ahead, Sarita.
And I also think that there's a great opportunity for us to bring our loved ones with us. It doesn't have to be that we leave them behind.
Yes.
I mean, the opportunity, because our numbers are greater, to be that bridge and to help our families. Right now, Excelencia has a whole series of Latino grads 2017 and on our social media stuff. And what you see are the abuelita and mama y papa and all the other family members there. And as somebody who is looking at recruitment, you recruit all of them. I mean, in terms of the economy and what we need in terms of talent, we need talented people. We need trained people. And that isn't a specific age group, but for us who are opening the doors, bring the family with us.
Yeah. And can I add to that? That's a beautiful statement. You have to bring your family with you. And at times, and I'm going to be very, very blunt, and at times you need a little distance. I will confess that at one point I divorced my family because when you're in Washington, D.C., and I'm just going to speak about Washington, or in any other industry, and you are invested and you're drilling down and you're making it happen, the drama of family at times, they don't understand what you are going through. I ate a lot of cereal when I was beginning in this town. But then you create new family. And I need to recognize Milady Guilarte and Jordan Valdez and Federico de Jesus and so many who are in this audience today. Those are my Washington family. They're the ones I call, and I see Abigail as well. They're the ones I call and I reflect. My family from home is the ones that are closest to my heart, but they don't understand this world. And sometimes it can be very lonely. But you have to protect yourself. And in our communities, mental health is not an issue we talk about. You have to be whole all the time, spiritually, physically, intellectually. And family at times needs to understand that, or you have to get some distance. So I had to be very blunt because this is a tough town.
It's true.
It's a tough town.
It's very true. Jenny, let me come back to you. Nina, sorry, go ahead. I know, but do you understand? See, we said one word, family, and everybody has something to say about it. I'm like, pick me.
Go for it.
No, I just wanted to comment as I'm listening to my colleagues speak, and I'm listening to the audience, and I'm watching. I go back to your very first question of what is the uniqueness that we bring, and it's so passion. It is the passion that we bring to what we do, and the passion to help our families and our community, as evidenced by the many people in this room. I feel like I'm in a family reunion of my own, and so I love, and when I'm in that ecosystem of Latinas, our community, I always find that the people that spend their time, whether they're from corporate America or entrepreneurship or nonprofits, they're very passionate about advancing us as a community aside, and that's just really amazing to me.
So let me give a 4-minute warning to when we do audience Q&A, so you can start thinking about what it is that you might want to pose specific questions. We're going to do 5 minutes of Q&A. Jenny, let me continue with you. Do you think that there is a way can you build a pipeline of Latina leaders coming up? I know you mentioned the young lady that you work with, 26 years of age, that is just blowing through barriers. Can you do that in the public, in the private sector? Can you build this pipeline of strong, capable Latinas that are ready for the job, ready to go?
Absolutely. No, it's, well, first of all, as everybody knows, Hispanics are the largest growing population in the country. 50,000 Hispanics turn 18 years old every month. So we have just this amazing farm team of Latinas who are ready to go around in every industry. And so it is possible, and it's possible. I'm already seeing it. I mean, there are all these wonderful nonprofit organizations, all of these that we work with. And the one thing that I'm able to do over at the White House is to bring in as many Latinas in there as possible to talk about policies, to talk about the concerns, the community has. And Nina was able to join us at a roundtable with Ivanka Trump and other Latinas in the workforce to talk about what are the obstacles that we face and how can we bring more in. And so we are trying to expand that and bring that word to as many people in the community as possible and bring as many Latinas to DC, regardless of whether they want to be in politics or business or healthcare, IT, what have you. It's about making sure that we're telling people what the opportunities are and then mentoring them. So the possibilities are endless. And now with social technology, social networking, forget it. I mean, the young kids in my office are like, you didn't have a cell phone? How did you, like, what did you do back then? I mean, the information that you're open to is so amazing. The tools that you have are so great. So I just encourage everybody to take advantage of them. And this is one thing someone has accused me of being. They're like, you're too timid. You're as a Hispanic woman. So what we have to do is not be timid. We have to make sure that we go out there and we do knock on that door. We are important, and we can talk to that congresswoman. We can talk to that governor. We can talk to that CEO. And so make sure that whatever you want, you go out there and you get it. And you join those networks so that they could help you move along. I think that's the one thing that was missing, 20 years ago that is really starting to grow is the networks that are so important.
So let's say we do get to that door and we do knock on that door, and we are absolutely certain that there is something behind that door that we want, and not only that we want, but that we are capable of having, not because it's given, but because it's earned. But the door doesn't open.
And you find a window.
What happens? You find a window.
Find a window. No,
¿Qué pasa? What do you do? What do you do then?
You don't take no for an answer. I mean, the blessing of my life is that I found a cause when I was very young. I was a student activist at the University of Texas at Austin, and I knew that UT did not look like the state. And I said, this isn't right. Now, I didn't know then what I can now argue from the demographics, from human capital, from the economy. I just knew it was wrong. And so I started to pursue that and check it each step of the way. That led to a career, which ultimately led to the opportunity that when I had the opportunity to look at the census data and see that no one was really arguing it in the way we now do, which is it's about human resources. A country's most precious resource is its human resource. Education is fundamental to developing that human resource. Latinos are part of this country's future. And how do you approach that? Tactically. So arguing that at the time, we started a nonprofit organization because we couldn't grow it any other place. And we made the case to those who could support. And of course, we always had to prove that what we were doing was useful. I mean, they weren't going to do it just because we were smiling.
Sure.
But you don't let up. You don't let up. You just pursue it. And you have to be practical. You have to pay your bills, and you have to make sure that, life and home is taken care of. But if there's something that you know needs to change, and you're in a position to do it, then you pursue it. I mean, you use the passion that we have, and you make it happen. And you look for people who believe in the same cause.
And I think there may be also, when we talk maybe about some, while we're passionate, I think some may be timid. And how aggressive is enough to say, I want to go after what it is that I know that I'm capable of and what I'm worth. And at other times, how do you say, okay, I know that this isn't going to be the place that's going to grow me, that's going to invest in me, and that's going to mentor me? Tactically finding that. So when do you read those waters and say, yes, I'm going to keep pushing, I will get here someday, or when do you say, you know what, this just may not be the place for me?
That sometimes comes with time and age, but I'll let Nina go first.
No, I said that the absolute correct answer to that is it depends.
Yeah.
It depends on so many different factors. And you have to be able, in life, I always tell people, surround yourself by people that truly want to see you succeed. I posted something yesterday, and I got a kick out of it because it's so true. Girls compete with each other. Women empower each other. And you have to figure out, thank you. You have to figure out the difference.
Yeah.
A long time I learned in life, there's two kinds of women. Those who will help you and those who will not. It's those that will help you and those who will not. So you have to be good at realizing which one am I dealing with. and just, go for the ones that you know want to empower you, want to help you, and do the same. Because your reputation will follow you if you are not being genuine, if you are not doing those things. But figuring out those two and then spending time, it's that old adage that I hear every time, dime quién son tus amigos y te diré quién eres. Right, everybody knows that adage. I mean, my father told me that when I was 17, and today I'm still saying this. And I can't say it enough. Ladies, surround yourself by people that truly want to see you succeed, and stick to them like glue.
Se me fue el tiempo. We have very quickly. I want to try to get to 2 questions. Let's see very quickly. Yes, ma'am, right here in the front, or second row. Yes, go ahead. Stand up. Let's hear you.
Hi, my name is Alma Molina. My question is around the gender pay gap. And how can we better own our worth, get better at asking for what we deserve, and get more comfortable talking about accumulating long-term wealth within the community?
Can we narrow that down into like 30 seconds? Anybody?
So wealth creation, it's a passion of mine. It's not enough to have a business and just kind of pay the bills. No, we need to change our narrative. And our narrative from a poverty narrative to a narrative of abundance. Now, it's not a magic wand. It doesn't happen overnight. But when you have people like Anina Vaca who's doing it, as you said before, you have to see it to be it. But we also need to be more strategic in our conversation. In this country, we live in a capitalistic society. It is capital that moves. So whether it's pulling our money and creating a business and helping others, whether it's scaling it, we need to talk about scale, whether it's being in an industry that is beyond just the grocery store, we need to start thinking about that. And I would be happy to connect with you. That's the other thing. Let's connect. If you want a friend for life, ask for a favor. As Latinos, we don't know how to ask for help. So I am encouraging you. Bombard us. Don't take it personal if we don't answer immediately. But we will eventually connect with you.
That's so good.
I think it's really important, though. It took me 10 years to ask for a raise. Like, it was very hard. Like, oh, I don't want to do that. I don't want to ask for that raise. So you just have to, get the cojones to do that. But the thing, be prepared. What is your worth? What do you bring to the company? What have you seen? Be knowledgeable about what other people are doing and what you are doing and your value added to the company. And not because you're a woman and not because of this, because I bring this to the company and this is what I ask, and you need to be bold about it. And you have to practice it a couple times maybe in the mirror before you go into your boss to ask, because it's some of us just don't naturally can do that. But that's the one knock on us, right? Men can just go in there and go, I'm worth this and I want you to pay me, otherwise I'm gonna walk out of there. We're sort of afraid of doing that. We need to put it on the table, but we need to be prepared and say this is what our worth is.
Let's do another question from the audience. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, Alejandra. So a common theme of today has been believing you can be something that does not yet exist, and that is not an easy thing to do. I believe you guys all became what did not exist. Can you talk about a moment when you failed on that journey, a specific moment, experience, and what you did to pick yourself back up?
I remember very well when we were starting Excelencia, the commitment that we received from a significant funder fell through. The person had made a commitment, but ultimately wasn't in a position to activate it. And there was the need for sincere gut check, because the rational part is, if you don't have the funding, then you really shouldn't do this. And I had come here thinking I was at some point going to go home to Texas. This was a good time with my tail between my legs to go home. And I said, I don't do well with what ifs. I accept when I can't change something, but if I'm going to wonder for a really long time. So I thought, how long could I reasonably invest myself, my own resources? I had just adopted my daughter as a single mom. And I said, I have to give this all that I think is reasonable, and then it's finite. So I said, it'll be 1 year. If in 1 year we can raise the resources to make the organization fly, then not only we will have succeeded, but we'll have the feedback from the market. And if the market tells us no, it might be a really good idea, but we'll go home. And in that first year, we raised the resources. Now, I'm not saying that I knew it was going to work, but what I knew was that I would be at peace with that outcome. And then I could redirect and spend my energy someplace else. Because the things that we want to do, there are probably 1,000 ways to get them done.
Right.
There's a lot of ways to get them done. But the way to figure it out, looking for the window, you keep looking so that you can spend your life's energies and the things that you decide are important, that you pursue them.
I just want to add real quickly.
Sure.
I'm so glad you asked that question. Every one of us has failed. You cannot be afraid to fail. It's okay to be discouraged. I always say embrace the terror. So when you're at that lowest moment, just embrace it. Go, yep, I'm in it. This sucks, but I'm going to pick myself back up. And sometimes I allow myself to have 2 or 3 days where I'm like, this is pity party, okay. And then you say, all right, I'm going to get back up and I'm going to do this. One very quick story, I ran a state assembly race and we won, but they didn't have enough people on staff to hire me on from the campaign. I didn't have a regular job for 6 months. I was on a little bit unemployment, a little bit here. I took a job at a political consulting company calling people to see if they wanted yard signs. I went from a strategist to calling people if they wanted yard signs because it had anything to do remotely with what I wanted to do. And guess what? That helped me. That was a really yucky 6 months, but I met some people through that got me to my next job. And so sometimes you have to do things that you maybe don't want to do, maybe aren't the most glamorous thing, but just do that gut check and no, this is not going to be me in a year,
You
in
get
2
some
years,
grit
in
from
3
it.
years. Absolutely.
All right, ladies, Nina, Alejandra,
beautiful message.
Sarita, Jennifer, thank you all very much. Thank you to our audience.
That was a beautiful message.